when Brian Norman Jr. defeated Derek Cuevas back in March with a third round stoppage, TKO. The post-fight saw something very intriguing and a first for Norman. We saw a #1 challenger step out at the post-fight presser with an official challenge letter. Yeah. Jin Sasaki from Japan stepped to Norman Jr. very respectfully and presented a challenge letter to him. And Norman was asked right on the spot, would he take that challenge? To which he said, hey, if terms could be worked out, I'm the world champ. I'll take him on. But then it was at that moment that things were set up and aligned for his next bout, which is coming up Thursday, June 19th from Japan. Let's talk about Brian Norman Jr., the WBO welterweight champion, and this challenge from Sasaki. Challenges. That's what world championship bouts are all about. And we're going to see the WBO welterweight title holder, Brian Norman Jr., on Thursday, June 19th, take on his #1 challenger, Jin Sasaki. This is a chance for Norman to really provide a little bit of separation between himself and some of the other fighters in the welterweight division, because as he has come along, he has proven himself to be quite the challenge himself. You know, in his last bout against Derek Cuevas, people were concerned that Cuevas, who was entering that fight as a very strong welterweight, that Puerto Rican fighter would provide Norman with some questions that he may need to answer. But it took just 3 rounds for Norman to make Cuevas decide he had had enough. 3 rounds. And so now we see the champion as he gets prepared to defend his fight and his title against Jin Sasaki. a man who stepped to him in the post-fight of that fight with a challenge letter. Now, if some of you know that Stormy B-Man loves martial art films, challenge letters are usually equated in those films when a certain sect of martial arts practitioners want to challenge another. So here we have it in traditional Asian form. This Japanese fighter is stepping to the WBO titleist saying, hey, I would like next. And so Norman Jr. has accepted that challenge. Now, they will be in Japan, and it's going to be a different type of scenario for Brian Norman, because he's going to have to recognize that there's a lot of things that he may be accustomed to cultural wise that won't be available or accessible over there. Just like anti-doping, there, from what I've been told, there will not be drug testing for this fight. So that means that Sasaki could come in juiced to the gills, and no one will have no one will have tested him prior to the fight, prior to training, and post-fight. However, there's another factor. Over there, they like to stack the raps, which, when we look at Sasaki and how he has come along in his career, there may be some cause to concern there. When we think about these fighters and their records, all you have to do is consider Norman, who is 27 wins with 21 KOs, will be entering in against Sasaki, who has 19 wins, 1 loss, 17 KOs, 1 draw. Now, these two men are in an early stage of their careers, not quite having entered a prime yet. Now, Norman is a year older at 24, and Sasaki, who's an orthodox fighter, is the same height, but has a 2.5-inch reach shorter at 69.5. But we could say that Brian Norman Jr. has something else. He has world-class experience of not only training with and sparring with fighters that are well known, but he's been, in a sense, at the elite level, and this will be Sasaki's opportunity to prove whether or not he belongs there. He's currently ranked number 3 in the world, and Norman Jr. is ranked number 4. Get that. But Sasaki is fighting now again on his home turf, but he's not fighting a guy that's going to come and lay down. You're going to have to really convince Brian Norman Jr., who is from Decatur, Georgia, who you are, coming out of Japan. And the assassin, Norman Jr.'s nickname, is going to be prepared to show you who he is. Now, as these two get ready for this match, the way I see it and break it down is this. Sasaki's very aggressive. He is a guy that winds up to the body with left hooks, often overpowering his opponents. He's a bully. Now, the one thing and principle we know in boxing about bullies is this. Bullies don't like to be bullied. And when a fighter has not only the ability to bully back or become the assertive bully, the one who has had a reputation of bullying usually is put in a place of uncomfortability. And that's what I expect to happen here. We could even see Brian get clipped and get injured, get hurt, but it's not going to end there. And Sasaki is going to have to be able to do more than one thing. And one thing he does well is punch. And he punches well coming forward and pressing. But Norman Jr. has the ability to not only just fight, but he can box. And they don't want to give much credit to him. He can punch as well. Now, if you're smart, if you remember the Angelo Leo fight, when he went over there just a few weeks ago to defend his title, he had to switch it up a little bit, because in his fight, his opponent was able to take it to him and was really trying to fight well, being toe-to-toe in close proximity and in range. But Leo would step out from time to time, utilize that jab, provide some separation, use lateral movement, and engage on his terms. That was the formula for his success. I expect Norman Jr. to have similar type of strategy and tactics to get through this situation. But I just hope that he can be adjusted to the Japanese environment. Now, the one thing that they do very respectfully over in Japan is the audience will sit and applaud at the end of rounds. They're very quiet. They are not like some other environments, like if you go to Mexico, if you go to Argentina, if you go to Ireland, if you go to the UK, you see and hear rallies of fans cheering and jeering, singing songs and getting behind their domestic heroes. But in Japan, it's quite different. Fighters are often even presented, especially the champions in fights, with bouquets of flowers. Sometimes before the fight, sometimes after the matches are over. So that may be something that would be new to the Normans. But all in all, I do expect this to be a bit of a fight early on. But I expect the pedigree of Norman Jr. to be that which will make the difference. And as the rounds go on, Sasaki is going to realize that just trying to bully this man is not necessarily going to be the formula for success. And because that's what he knows, he won't have the ability to make an adjustment to do otherwise. So he'll end up playing in Norman Jr.'s hands. And then he will find himself in trouble. I expect at the end of the day that the champion, Norman Jr., will prevail. And I expect we to see him with his hands raised at the end of the fight. But I also expect to see that his stock will raise at the end of this fight. This is just what he needs at this particular time, along with several other of his contemporaries in the sport of boxing. This is how you gain greater acclaim, by going on the road, going into hostile environments, fighting under the circumstances that are not necessarily so comfortable and familiar. You need challenges in this sport, and that's what keeps your edges sharp. And I do believe that Norman Jr. is quite the sharp individual, and he's going to show that to the world on June 19th. The bout will be broadcast on ESPN Plus, and from what I've checked with the time, due to the time zone difference, it'll be roughly around 6 a.m. Central Time. So you got to get up early Thursday morning to check this fight out. But what do you think? This is Stormy B-Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are about this match, how you see things shaking out. Do you see Brian Norman being successful? Do you think he'll return with his title? Or do you think that Sasaki has what it takes to replace him as the world champ? Leave comments and let's discuss further. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.